Okay, so this is our last video of day 3 of class here, and so we're going to kind of continue on with the Socrates. Now, one of the things to note here is this. Lysias says they were discussing the theme of love. Lysias has been writing about a fair youth who is being tempted but not by a lover. And this was the point. He ingeniously proved that the non-lover should be accepted rather than the lover. That is his opinion. That is his thesis statement, as we would say in college. It's his main idea. And like I ask you guys to have your opinion and to back it up with reasons and examples, Lysias will give his opinion, which is that it's better to be in a romantic relationship with someone that doesn't love you rather than someone that does. And he is going to have reasons, and he is going to have examples. And one of the things I like about, one of the reasons I picked Plato, one of the reasons I think this book is so important, especially to us, is that we are in a class where we're learning how to write, and we're working on writing, and we're working on composition. It's sort of like speeches. Actually, speech is a class you can take at BMCC, and it's very similar to this class, which is essentially just speeches but written down. And the point is that I think it's fascinating. This is something I care about in my life, but this book was written 2,500 years ago, and it is about the same things that we're teaching in college today, which is I just gave you a handout where I said you need to make your point and then back it up with reasons and examples. And that's exactly what you're going to see Lysias doing. So one of the reasons I think it's valuable to study Plato is that you're seeing someone who is doing the same things in his book of philosophy. He's the most famous philosopher. Plato is the most famous philosopher who's ever lived. And he writes his books the same way that you're going to write your essay, which is that your essays in class, which is that he gives his opinion and he backs it up with reasons and he backs it up with examples. And also he considers both sides, as you will see, because this is going to become a great debate. And so he considers both sides of the issue. All the same things I ask you to do in our class, Plato is doing 2,500 years ago. So even though he comes from a totally different culture, a totally different space, and a totally different time, we're studying the same things. And if you follow me and you take other classes with me, I have a Shakespeare class, and I have a film class, and I have a literature class, and I'm really interested in the ways in which the things that we do today are essentially the same kinds of things that people did a long time ago. I'm interested in, we often think that life way back then was so different, where life nowadays is so different, it's so complicated because we have the internet and we have airplanes and we have machine guns and whatever. And so people often talk about how crazy life is today, and it was simpler back in the olden days. When by the olden days they mean like the 50s, 1950s. This is 2,500 years old, and I'm fascinated by the fact that Plato is doing and discussing the same kinds of things that we're doing now. It makes me feel good to feel like there is a continuity or connection between things that are old and what's going on now. There are some things, obviously, that are different about now, but one of the things we'll be talking about this semester is, are they really that different? So this is Lysias's argument. They're going to discuss this now. So Socrates begins by kind of joking. He says, "Oh, noble of him," because he's joking that he really likes this. He likes it because he's joking around, but the argument's kind of backwards, right? Wouldn't you think you want to be in a relationship with somebody who loves you, not with somebody that doesn't love you? And Socrates thinks this is entertaining. He thinks it's funny. He's kidding, by the way. He actually doesn't like Lysias, and he does not like what Lysias has to say, but he pretends he does, and he kind of jokes around about it a little bit. And he says, "Boy, I hope Lysias will keep making arguments like this." And he says, I wish he would say the poor man rather than the rich, and the old man rather than the young one. I wish he would meet the case of me and many a man. His words would be quite refreshing, and he would have a public benefactor, meaning he'd get lots of money. For my part, I do so long to hear his speech that if you walk all the way to Megara, and when you have reached the wall and come back, as Herodicius commands, without going in, I will keep you company. I mess up the pronunciations of some of these words sometimes, I apologize. But Socrates says, I'm going to walk with you. Phaedrus is walking outside the city. They're leaving the city. And Socrates says, I'm going to go with you. Let's talk about this while we walk. But he's joking around. He claims, he doesn't really like Lysias, but he says, boy, Lysias is a great guy because he says crazy things in his arguments. And you know, this is so good that we have somebody. Maybe next, after he finishes arguing that you should be in a relationship with someone that doesn't love you, maybe he'll say it's better to be in a relationship with a poor person or maybe an old person, because Socrates is both poor and old. And he's joking that maybe Lysias will make an ingenious speech, a clever, original, unusual speech about why being old and poor is better than being young and rich. He says Socrates would appreciate that since he is old and poor. Because Socrates does not make a lot of money. He's like Jesus. He just like wanders around talking to people. He doesn't live in like a beautiful palace or anything. All right. I'll stop for a second, and I'm going to end this video by doing something. You're getting the hang of this. I want to stop by doing something kind of silly really quick. But see the word benefactor? Benefactor is a word that you might not know. But if you look up benefactor in the dictionary, let's look it up. Benefactor definition. If you look on here, a benefactor is a person who gives money or help to another person. So a benefactor is someone who gives you money. Now, your teachers often tell you need to have a better vocabulary. They love to bug you about that. And a lot of the way teachers do this is they want students to learn more words. Just lists and lists and lists and lists of words that you're supposed to like memorize or something. But it doesn't, it's not a good way to increase your vocabulary. The way to increase your vocabulary is by learning where words come from. So to understand how they work. So benefactor, I'm going to show you a little trick on here. I'll go into more detail about this later, but actually I'll just tell you about it now. I'm not going to look it up right now. Bene, B-E-N-E. If you look up the history of the word benefactor, the word B-E-N-E is a Latin sort of cluster of letters that means good. Bene means good in Latin. So what's interesting about it is that instead of learning hundreds of words, if you just learn that B-E-N-E means good, then you can find piles of words now that if you think about other words that have bene in the start of them, and you'll realize, let's try to think of some, right? So benefactor, benefit, benevolent. There's even a dog food called Beneful. Doesn't mean anything, but they're good. A benefit is something good. A benefactor is somebody who gives money to a good cause. Beneful is the name of the dog food because it fills your dog. Beneful, you'll be full. Your dog is full when you eat it. Bene, it's good for you. Benefit, benefactor, benevolent, beneful. Once you have the sort of roots of the words, if you understand where words come from, you can understand piles of other words and what they mean. So the way you do this is you look up, I'm typing it up for you here. This is the way you do it. This word etymology, benefactor etymology. If you look up definition, it'll tell you what the words mean. If you look up benefactor etymology, it'll tell you where it comes from. So you see, benefactor comes from the Latin bene, to do good. Once you have that piece of it, and then you can understand why it looks like that, then you'll realize there's all these other words that have bene in them. And that is how you increase your vocabulary. We could do this all day, but let's do it. I'll go over a real simple one right now. M-A-L, mal. In Latin, mal means bad. Now, some of you speak Spanish, and you will also know that mal is a word that means bad or evil in Spanish. But let's think about English words that have mal in them. And this won't work 100% of the time. Male and female, for example, the M-A-L in male does not mean evil. So it doesn't work all the time. You have to look this up sometimes. But a lot of words that have mal in them are bad. If mal means evil, malnutrition means your nutrition's bad. Malfactor is someone who has done something wrong. Malfeasance is when you make a mistake. Malice is evil. Malpractice is when a doctor screws something up. If someone does surgery badly, it's malpractice. Malicious. Malware is a computer virus. The word mal is all things bad. And by the way, it's not just in words like malice and malevolent and malefactor and malware. It's also in nonsense words. Harry Potter's great enemy is Draco Malfoy. Why is his name Malfoy? Because mal means bad. And guess what? Draco's kind of a jackass. So when you learn word histories, it can really help. And this is a big thing. So don't just look up definitions. You can also look up etymologies. Because if you understand, etymology means word history. So if you understand where words come from, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to remember and learn other words when you realize they're all related. All right, cool. Well, that's the end of the third day of class. So, good job. Let's pick it up and pick it up next time. You survived.